The silence that fell over the Zenith, the city's most exclusive restaurant, was so thick it seemed to have weight. Conversation ceased, cutlery froze mid-air, and dozens of eyes fixed on the small space between the tables. 10-year-old Claire trembled visibly. Her legs, encased in metal braces, wavered as she extended her hand to Samuel Davis, the only black waiter in the restaurant. The live jazz trio had just begun a soft, improvised melody, and the girl's impulse to invite someone to dance came without warning. "Sir, control your daughter." Manager Miss Stone's sharp voice broke the silence. "This is inappropriate." Helen Miller, CEO of Miller Industries and one of the wealthiest women in the country, swallowed hard. It was the first time she had taken Claire to dinner in public since the accident 2 years prior that had partially paralyzed her legs. "Claire, sit down." The order came low, but firm. Samuel remained still, his gaze flickering between the manager, the billionaire, and the girl. In his 5 years working there, he had learned to become invisible, especially to clients like Helen Miller, whose foundation had once swiftly rejected a proposal for a community project he helped found. "Miss Stone, I'm leaving. My shift is over." His voice sounded calm as he removed his immaculate white jacket. To everyone's surprise, he smiled at Claire and took her hand. "Can't dance in a jacket, can I?" Helen stood up abruptly. "What do you think you're doing?" Samuel met her gaze. "I'm accepting an invitation, Mom." Before anyone could interfere, Claire took a hesitant step forward. Her foot dragged painfully across the floor, and the metal of her braces creaked. But Samuel didn't try to guide her. He simply adjusted his own pace. "He's going to be fired tomorrow," a man whispered. Helen watched, paralyzed. A sudden memory struck her. Christopher, her late husband, dancing with Claire. "It's about connection," he had said. As Samuel followed Claire's clumsy steps, fear gave way to intense concentration in the girl's eyes. Shame gave way to timid pride. For the first time since the accident, she wasn't being guided. She was leading. "Ms. Miller," manager Ms. Stone's voice interrupted, "I assure you this will never happen again." Helen didn't respond. Claire's smile, however, was the only sound that echoed in Helen's mind. Samuel led the girl back to the table after 3 dance steps. "Thank you for inviting me," he said formally. "It was an honor." As he turned to leave, Helen stopped him. "Wait." Her voice sounded different. "What's your full name?" "Samuel Davis, ma'am." Helen nodded slowly. "Samuel Davis," she repeated. Then she took a card from her jacket and extended it. "My office. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. The entire restaurant held its breath. Samuel accepted the card without showing emotion, but his hand trembled slightly. "Mom," Claire called as he walked away. "Why did you do that?" The question hung in the air. Helen looked at her daughter, and for a brief moment saw a complete human being whose desires and needs she had systematically ignored. As dinner proceeded, no one noticed Samuel's calm determination as he left, contrasting with the storm forming in Helen Miller's eyes. If this story about dignity and transformation is already touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow how a simple gesture of respect can start a quiet revolution capable of transforming lives forever. The lobby of the Sterling House gleamed. Samuel Davis felt out of place in his best clothes. "Samuel Davis, to see Miss Miller," he told the receptionist. 18th floor, Mr. Williams will take you up." Samuel took a deep breath. It wasn't fear he felt, it was a quiet determination. Mr. Williams, a man in his 40s, led him. "Miss Miller is on a conference call. Please follow me." As he walked through the mirrored corridors, Samuel felt curious. A black man being escorted through executive office hallways was rare. "She sent you away, didn't she?" Williams asked suddenly in a waiting room. "It happens. Powerful clients call and people like you lose their jobs. Employees who don't know their place." Samuel smiled without amusement. "And where exactly would that be?" Before Williams could answer, his phone rang. "She'll see him now." Helen Miller's office occupied half the floor. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, The city seemed her private property. "Ms. Miller," Samuel greeted her. Helen turned, in control. "Mr. Davis, thank you for coming." She pointed to a chair. The silence was calculated. "Do you have experience, training, a college degree?" Helen asked. Samuel kept his gaze steady. "A degree in child psychology from a renowned university and an incomplete master's in adaptive movement therapies." Something flickered across Helen's face. "And you work as a waiter?" "I have 3 jobs, the restaurant, a charity shop, and as a social worker." Helen picked up a folder. "I did some research on you. I wanted to understand who the person was who," she hesitated, "danced with my daughter." She opened the folder, revealing photos of a community center, living steps that he helped found. Samuel sat up straighter. "I founded it with my brother Adam. It's a movement program for children with physical disabilities." Helen leafed through documents stating it was about to close due to lack of funds. Samuel showed no surprise. "I didn't come here to ask for money." "Then why did you come?" "Because you invited me." Helen laughed softly. "Fair enough." She stood up. "I want you to work for me." Samuel blinked. "As a waiter in your house?" Helen's face hardened. "As a therapeutic companion for Claire." Her daughter's name seemed difficult for her to pronounce. Samuel noticed her eyes drift to a photo, a smiling man holding a baby. "I have the best specialists," Helen continued. "But what you did yesterday?" She paused. "It was just a dance." It was the first time I saw her smile since the accident. The admission was painful. "I don't want a dancer for my daughter. I want someone who can do what you did, follow, not lead." Samuel studied the woman. Behind the powerful woman, he saw a desperate and lost mother. "I can pay you 5 times what you earn now." Samuel stood up. "No." Helen looked shocked. "I don't work for anyone who sees my color or social class before competence," he explained. "And I don't work for anyone who tried to buy solutions to emotional problems, especially after your foundation reviewed and discarded my methodologies years ago." Helen's face flushed. Samuel had come prepared. "You're refusing an offer that would solve your financial problems out of pride, out of dignity." "Dignity," Samuel corrected. "And because your daughter deserves more than someone hired to pretend to care." He walked to the door, then stopped. "Claire doesn't need more specialists. She needs space to lead her own life." "You don't know my daughter." "No," Samuel agreed, "but I know people like her, people whose physical limitations are nothing compared to the invisible cages we build around them." He took a card from his wallet and placed it on the table. "Living Steps classes are on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. If you want to bring Claire, the first class is free." As Samuel left, he passed Mr. Williams, who was obviously listening. "You just refused an offer from Helen Miller," he whispered. "Are you crazy?" Samuel smiled. "Perhaps, but I'd rather be crazy than owned by someone." The following Wednesday, Samuel was at the community center's reception when Adam, his brother, came running. "There's a luxury car parked outside," he whispered nervously, "and you won't believe who's inside." Through the window, Samuel saw the car. Claire was in the back seat. Helen remained in the driver's seat. "She won't come in," Adam predicted. "Women like her don't come to places like this." Samuel smiled. "Don't underestimate a determined daughter." As they watched, the car door opened. Claire got out. Then Helen also got out. She looked out of place in her casual clothes that still screamed privilege. "I told you she'd come," Samuel murmured. Adam's eyes widened. "What did you do?" Samuel didn't answer, but his eyes sparkled. In his apartment was a notebook full of notes about children like Claire and women like Helen Miller. Years of observation, research, and a plan that started with a dance. Helen Miller didn't know that Samuel Davis wasn't just a waiter. He was a man with a mission, and her empire of isolation was about to face its biggest challenge. The truth that some lessons cannot be bought, they must be lived. Living Steps operated in an old community warehouse. Handmade posters decorated the walls. When Helen and Claire entered, children with mobility devices were practicing movements. "Ms. Miller," Samuel approached. "Welcome." Claire watched the children in awe. "It seems chaotic," Helen commented. "The structure," Samuel replied, "is just not what you recognize." He turned to Claire. "Would you like to participate?" The girl nodded. "Go ahead," Helen said, tense. "I'll be right here." As Samuel guided Claire, Adam offered Helen a chair. "The first day is always the hardest," he commented, "for the parents." "This isn't therapy," Helen argued. "I hired the best rehabilitation specialists." "And how has that been working for Claire?" Adam asked gently. The studio door opened, and an older man entered, leaning on an ornate cane. "Dr. Alexander Gray," Adam whispered, "neuroscientist specializing in brain plasticity, retired from a prestigious university." Dr. Gray greeted the children before noticing Helen. "Ms. Miller, you rejected my research proposal 3 times. Dr. Gray, I didn't expect to see you here," Helen replied. "I oversee the research program here," he explained. Helen frowned. "I thought it was just a community dance class." Samuel returned. "Living Steps is a pilot motor rehabilitation program based on movement autonomy," he explained. "We integrate adaptive dance with neuroscientific principles." "Why do you work as a waiter if you lead a research program?" Helen asked. "Because we don't have adequate funding yet, and because people like you rejected us 3 times. It clicked. "You were Dr. Gray's assistant?" Helen concluded. Dr. Gray corrected her. "Samuel has an incomplete master's because he had to drop out of college to care for his family. But his theoretical work is innovative, and he was my lead researcher on the proposals you discarded." "You knew who I was at the restaurant?" Helen asked. "From the moment you walked in," Samuel confirmed. "And when Claire got up to dance, I saw an opportunity to show, not just talk." "Was the dance staged?" "Absolutely not. Claire chose to stand up. I chose to follow." A group of reporters entered, and Helen immediately tensed. "What is this?" "Part 2 of the plan," Samuel smiled. Adam showed Helen a newly published article. "Revolutionary motor rehabilitation methodology shows promising results." "We published our first results today," Dr. Gray explained, "and we invited the press." "You used my daughter for a public relations stunt," Helen said, her voice pure ice. Samuel led her to a side room with photos of children. On the last wall was an empty frame. "What's that?" she asked. "Our future, the full rehabilitation center we could build. 500 children a year instead of 50. "You orchestrated all this?" Helen murmured. "The dance, the meeting, bringing me here on press day. I saw an opportunity 4 months ago when you cancelled our meeting. I promised myself I'd fight for this." "Helen!" Adam interrupted. "It's Claire!" They ran back. Claire was in the center of the room, surrounded by other children. Someone had turned off the music. The girl had removed one of her braces and was trying to balance on a single support. "Claire!" Helen moved forward, but Samuel stopped her. "Wait," he whispered. "Watch." Claire took a deep breath, focused, then to everyone's surprise, took a full step, unsupported. It was small, shaky, but entirely hers. The children applauded, and camera flashes went off. Helen's usually composed face was now exposed, tears glistening. "That's why we created Living Steps," Samuel said softly. "It's not about perfect steps, it's about the first steps on your own." Helen watched her daughter not as a problem, but as a complete person, discovering her own strength. "This could have been done without manipulating me," she said. "It could have been if you had returned our calls or read our proposals 3 times. The reporters noticed Helen. Claire, oblivious, continued practicing. Helen Miller was cornered. She faced 2 options: retreat in anger, confirming her reputation as cold and calculating, or embrace the moment her daughter had created. Helen found herself in unfamiliar territory. Her gaze alternated between her smiling a daughter, and the reporters. Humility was not a virtue in her vocabulary, but seeing Claire's transformation, something inside her began to yield. The orchestra of power and privilege to which she was accustomed now played a different melody. Helen Miller faced the reporters. Her daughter had just taken a step, and Samuel Davis had humbly led her to this moment. "Ms. Miller," a reporter approached, "could you comment on your presence at Living Steps? Is it true that your foundation rejected funding for this program?" Helen looked at Claire, then to everyone's surprise, she smiled. "Do you know what's most difficult for someone in my position?" Helen addressed the reporter, admitting we were wrong. An astonished silence filled the room. The Miller Foundation is pleased to announce its commitment to fully fund Living Steps for the next 5 years and to build a permanent rehabilitation center based on the methodology developed by Dr. Alexander Gray and Mr. Davis. Camera flashes erupted. Adam let out a cry of surprise. "With one condition," she added, watching Samuel tense, "that Mr. Davis retains full autonomy over the program and its methodology without corporate interference, because," she continued, looking directly at Samuel, "it is clear that true leadership here lies in following." 3 months later, bulldozers were clearing the land for the new Living Steps Rehabilitation Center. It wasn't the most luxurious project, but it was the most innovative, designed with input from children and families. Samuel frequently supervised the construction. Claire appeared regularly, and to the team's surprise, Helen Miller also appeared, observing in silence. "I never thought you'd actually show up to board meetings," Samuel commented. "I never thought I'd have to study neuroplasticity at 50, Helen replied, rubbing her tired eyes. A scientific article marked with notes lay before her. "But here we are." Samuel looked at her. "Is this part of your public penance, or do you really care?" Claire asked to take off her second brace last week. Her previous physical therapist said that would be impossible for at least 2 years. Samuel smiled. "But you fired her, remember? Because you told me she was wrong, and she was." Samuel pointed to a photo of Claire balancing with a crutch. "She's progressing faster than any traditional medical prediction." "Why have you never accepted my apology?" Helen asked suddenly. "Because you never apologized," Samuel countered. "You redirected resources, changed policies, funded our program. That's not an apology. That's compensation." Helen nodded slowly. "Fair enough." At the inauguration ceremony 6 months later, the contrast with the night at the restaurant couldn't have been greater. The huge adapted space was full of children. In the center, Claire, now using only a light brace, led a choreographed routine. Her movements flowed with confidence. Helen watched from afar. "She doesn't need you to reassure her anymore," Samuel said. "No," Helen agreed, "but she still needs me to be around. Crucial difference." Helen turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "For what exactly?" "For teaching me to follow." A reporter approached. "Ms. Miller, how does it feel to see your daughter's progress?" Helen looked at Claire, who was helping a younger boy, proud not of what she overcame, but of what she created for others. "And what was the biggest lesson you learned?" Helen Miller, known for her financial empire, looked at the camera. "True leaders are not those who guide others down the path they believe is right, but those who have the courage to follow when someone shows them a better way." 1 year later, Living Steps expanded to 3 new cities. Samuel received the Innovation in Pediatric Rehabilitation Award. Claire, now using a light cane on difficult days, enrolled in a regular school and became a youth spokeswoman. Helen learned the most difficult and valuable lesson. True power doesn't lie in controlling every movement, but in knowing when to step back and let others lead. In a world where powerful people rarely change and those without power often remain in the shadows, the story of Helen, Samuel, and Claire reminds us that true transformation occurs when we cross invisible barriers, when a billionaire learns from a waiter, when a mother follows in her daughter's footsteps. If this story about how a simple gesture of dignity changed lives forever touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to our channel, because we believe that the most profound revolutions do not begin with grand manifestos or billionaire fortunes. They begin when someone has the courage to take an authentic first step and another person has the wisdom to follow.